It's great to be here. This is the first time I'm speaking in New York, so it's a very, very special night for me. And the reason is typically when you're asked to talk about your company and what you do, it's about something that's, folks haven't heard about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about healthcare. But I figured I'd do something special tonight. The things that I'm about to talk about, I've never shared publicly. These are the stories of our failures along the way. And I figured, rather than just giving you guys, wow, everything is going so great and life is awesome and my startup is the best startup in the world, I figured I'd just get real with you all and share with you guys some of the ways in which we've really stumbled along the way. And this isn't those kinds of failure stories where it's not really a failure, it's not like a humble brag. These are really areas where we fucked up. And I wanted to share these with you guys in hoping that you guys don't do these things because it can get very, very difficult. Now, before these stories make sense to you, I want to sort of set the context a little bit and tell you guys about what SwipeSense is. And there's no better way to tell you guys about SwipeSense than share the story of this man. This gentleman, his name is Nick Wallenda. Nick Wallenda is a 7th generation tightrope walker. And in 2014, he did something remarkable. He set a tightrope between 2 high-risers in Chicago, and he walked 94 feet in winds up to 25 miles per hour with no safety harness. He made it to the other side, and he etched his name into Chicago history. Now, what made Nick's journey really remarkable is that bad dude did it with a blindfold. And if that wasn't bad enough, he then gave a press conference also in a blindfold. And I remember this was the very, very early days of SwipeSense. And I remember looking at the striking image and feeling like, you know what this guy reminds me of? This guy reminds me of our customers. See, SwipeSense works with hospitals. And a hospital is constantly trying to balance 2 things. The thing number 1 is patient outcomes. Sounds obvious, right? I mean, how satisfied are my patients? Is the lunch good? Are they alive? It's kind of an important one. So on one side is outcomes. On the other side is profitability. I mean, a hospital is a business. It's a service business, but it's a business. And hospitals need to stay in the black, just like any other business. This balancing act is very, very, very difficult. And hospitals today are failing at both. Let's talk about outcomes. 75,000 patients every year in the US alone die because of a hospital-acquired infection. These are the bugs you get after you're admitted to the hospital. So you go in with a rib replacement, and you might pass away because of a C. diff infection. We're not even talking about satisfaction. These are literally people who die. Outcomes. On the other side, this is the average profit margin of a hospital in the US. We keep hearing about wow, healthcare is so expensive. It's like trillions and cajillions of dollars. 2.7% is the average operating margin of a US hospital. It's the lowest it has ever been in the past 10 years, according to Moody's. This is bad. So what SwipeSense does is we lift the blindfold. We are the eyes and ears of the hospital to make better decisions. And we have a number of applications. Our apps improve hand hygiene for hospitals to reduce infections. We manage your inventory so you know where things are and you don't lose them. We help manage your staff and load balance. And we do it by thousands of sensors distributed across the hospital. You can basically realize that a hospital is just a collection of activities. People going in and out of rooms, delivering care, they're doing stuff. And we're able to visualize all of that in a digital floor plan of the hospital. It's really, really interesting, the questions that you can ask and how certain things can get really, really unintuitive. Now, we take all this data, we put it into a nice-looking dashboard, and we feed it back to the hospital, so they ultimately create change. And this is just a handful of the change that we've delivered last year. We've saved hospitals over $8 million, we've saved some lives, and we've improved outcomes for hundreds of patients. So very, very proud of our outcomes. But today isn't about that. Today is about stories where we fell short. The first story that I want to share with you guys about starts with a phone call. And it was 2016, it was a Friday morning, I'll never forget this. My cell phone rings, and it's the chief quality officer of our largest customer. It could go either way, good or bad call. I go, hello, and she immediately goes, Mert, your system isn't working. And I go, well, tell me more. What's going on? See, they were using our hand hygiene application. Hand washing in hospitals is really, really important because if doctors and nurses don't wash their hands, people get infections, the infections that I talked about that kill people. Now, she mentioned that, look, I was showing the system to the chair of our board this morning. And I went into a room, I washed my hands, I came out, and your system said that I was 0% compliant. You gotta send somebody down here to check this out. Not a good call. Now, at the time, we had measured our accuracy, and it was 95% accurate. No system is perfect, but 95 is pretty good. And it was pretty certain that this was a very unfortunate 5% coincidence. But we sent a team down there. Now, checking your accuracy isn't, it's sampling. I mean, you basically look at what's happening in the real world, and you compare it to what your system says is happening. And this is what we're shooting for. Reality is, this is what we actually measured. It's like really bad, this number. When this kind of stuff happens to you, this isn't like, oh, there's a bug and we have downtime. This is like what you've built is trash. And this is like years of work, hospitals, this is a pretty big shock. Now, the only thing that I'm proud of is that when we found this out, it took us about a month to get to this. I hopped in a plane and went to every single one of our customers and said, hey, this is reality. What do you want to do? Every single one of our customers said that they were not renewing their contract. Like, this is the kind of earthquake that kills companies, right? And there's nothing glamorous about this. We had 6 months until those contracts expired. And we literally locked ourselves into the office and rebuilt what had taken us about 2.5, 3 years in the span of 6 months. We did end up shipping it. We managed to save all of our customers, but this is not a happy ending. Because the quarter after, half of our engineering team resigned. At the time, I was all about, let's work really hard and all of that. And look, we're all hard workers. But there's a difference between burning people out and being really passionate and intense about what you do. And we became a different company because of that. I really don't buy into this wake up at 4 in the morning and send 250 emails and take some espresso shots kind of bullshit anymore. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And you build the right kind of company by never being in this place in the first place. There's nothing glamorous about digging yourself out of that hole. But the learning that's larger than that is, somebody said move fast and break things. That's horseshit. Don't do it. Especially in healthcare. Don't move fast and break things. Build things with purpose, align yourself with long-term investors who know where you're going, and treat your partners, not your customers, your partners who are giving you their time and patience with dignity and honesty. If you are open with where your shortcomings are, they'll give you the patience that you need to move forward. But now the technology works, life should be really good. And the next story is about a tie-dye shirt. Now, this is like the beginning of 2017. We're so excited. We solved this technology problem. Now the technology works. And the first 6 months of the year, this is what hand hygiene looks like across our customers. Flat. It's not improving. It's like 50%. It should be really bad. And I'm thinking to myself, people, you should change. You're not washing your hands enough. The numbers should be higher. This is, of course, a very stupid thing to say, because this is the equivalent of giving somebody a weight scale and some dumbbells and saying, why aren't you super fit? Come on, so easy, you're fat. This isn't how people change. People change by really understanding what their deep motivations and behaviors are. What did we do? The only thing that we know how to do. We hopped on a plane and went to our customers. I started asking them, sitting in on nurse executive meetings, med exec meetings, hospital administrators, and trying to understand, how do you change anything in this place? You wouldn't realize, but actually hospitals have a huge challenge in getting everybody vaccinated, for example. You have to have programs and plans in place. And the thing that we realized was they just told us, and by the way, this is my side pet peeve, when people tell me that, I can never get to my customers. We're doing this with hospitals. Hospitals aren't places that you can just walk into. Whenever I hear a founder tell me that, I can never get to my customers, I'm like, dude, it's down the street. Go to a coffee shop. They're there for you. So there's no excuse not to talk to your customers whenever you're faced with these kinds of difficult problems. So what we ended up doing is basically a highly contextualized award ceremony to celebrate the achievements of these hospitals. This one in particular is the one I like the most. This is a 60s themed dance party for a hospital achieving 60% compliance. And the guy on the right is the chief medical officer. And my crowning achievement that I've ever done in my life is to put a tie-dye shirt on a chief medical officer who's a super, super, super serious dude in healthcare. But we got it. We got it, and every single one of our customers started to improve their hand hygiene scores. Life should be good. The lesson here is that your technology doesn't equal change. And people really don't care what your tech does or like what your battery life is or your latency is if you're not delivering change. And vice versa, if you're delivering change, it kind of doesn't matter what your battery life is. It's working. And this kind of realization is very, very difficult for an engineer like I am. Because I want to say, like, it's the battery, like, the accuracy is really great, like, it should just work. Nobody cares. Newsflash. The last story is about a bed sensor. Now, the onion, one layer, tech didn't work. We got it to work. Product didn't do what it was supposed to do. We got it to do that. Now we should collect the money. Like, this is the part in which the story where you're supposed to, like, really boost your sales. And the problem that we were facing about 14, 15 months ago is like the two words, that's like the nightmare of every startup: flat sales. I like the VC in the audience just like had a heart attack. It's like the worst thing that you can do. And by the way, this isn't flat sales where like we have no sales. I find that to be like the death valley for startups. Like, encyclopedias have been written about how to get to ones, like 0 to 1, like go to an accelerator, go like do a lot of prototyping, and like there's all sorts of stuff about how to get from 10 to 100, like how do we blitz scale and like Krieg war, whatever the keyword is these days. But like nobody talks about the grind it takes from like getting from 1 to 10. Like you got something that's working, but it's not working well enough so like everybody's yoked about it. What to do? The only thing we know how to do. We went to our customers and started asking them, what job did you hire us for? If you guys aren't familiar with this, look this up. This is really interesting. The milkshake study by Clay Christensen from Harvard Business School. They asked, when McDonald's was facing flat milkshake sales, what does a milkshake do for a person? My little gift to you, look it up when you go home. But you're really incentivized and sort of tempted to just say, hey, if we made the website blue, would you pay more for it? Like, it's like you have an answer that's something that you can do, and you want to see if you can monetize it, right? Like, hey, if we had this feature, would you buy it? And like, boy, did we try cajillion things. We hired and subsequently let go sales executives. We like hired like lead gen campaigns, features. Nothing was working. And like, we go to our hospitals and ask them, why do you keep renewing? This is a difficult question to ask to your customers, right? Like, why are you doing this? What job did you hire us to do that we're not even aware of? And one of our hospital executives takes us to a labor and delivery unit and points us to a hospital bed. And goes, Mert, last month, one of these beds walked out of this hospital. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, it's a $10,000 piece of equipment. We don't know where it is. So we put one of your badges, like the stuff that people wear, on the bed so we know when it enters and exits the room. And I'm like, dude, beds don't wash their hands. Like, nobody told us that this was a thing. And they were doing it. They didn't ask for permission. They didn't ask whether this was good for this or not. They just did it. And last year, we basically listened to these stories and commercialized applications that we didn't realize that people were using the technology for. People were using this to check if nurses were rounding on their patients, check if they were overstaffed or understaffed. About a year and a half ago, all we did was hand hygiene. I was very, very proud of this fact. Like, oh, we don't do this platform BS. Like, we're doing one thing, we're doing it really, really well. No. Last year, we were able to double sales. And we did it with half of our customers coming from these kinds of platform applications. I'm super, super proud of that. And our vision just grew. Our vision became a lot bigger than what we thought we could do. Now, the important thing here is that you should not sell out. The mission of the company is to save lives. And literally, we got approached by like a fast food company saying, hey, our kitchen people should wash their hands as well. Are you interested? We turned them down. Because I think truly what gets you out of the bed in the morning is more than just being successful. It's to right a wrong in the world. And for us, it's people literally dying in healthcare. Shouldn't happen. And if the applications serve that overall mission, it's absolutely something that we should be building out. So we're building the largest data set of hospital operations. It's really, really interesting. We never knew what actually happened inside a hospital ever in healthcare history. And we're super, super excited about the questions that we're asking and the insights that we're leading to. The real heroes, of course, are the team. And I'm very, very proud and thankful for them. So from this video to the internet, I love you guys. I'm very, very happy that we're together. And I'm thankful that you're here. I'm hoping to be back in the future to tell you guys about new ways in which we're saving lives, and I appreciate you guys for having me here tonight. Thank you.
Hello. So cool. Thank you. And thank you for bringing so much energy to the...
It's the end. I gotta give it in.
And that was without the 5 a.m. coffee, you said?
No.
Very good. So how does the sensing work? Let's talk about the product a little bit.
Yeah, so I actually have one in my pocket. These are our little badges. They last about 2 years inside the hospital. We actually built our own protocol that's adjacent to Bluetooth Low Energy. Turns out Bluetooth Low Energy isn't low energy enough. So we basically distribute these sensors to everywhere in the hospital, and they mainly sense location. Now, because we know what location does what, we're able to infer whether it's in patient care, or if it's in a station somewhere, or if it's being cleaned, and all sorts of insights are generated from there.
And they track people's locations?
They track people's locations.
So people need to have another badge
attached to the... it goes behind your ID badge, basically.
Okay. Very, very cool. Okay. And where are you deployed? What are some examples of hospitals where?
Yeah, so we're across 12 states now. We have some large health systems, academic medical centers. We typically are in sort of these 15 to 20 health systems where we're trying to standardize care across their hospitals. And it's super, super exciting because, you know, when we have a good quarter, we look back and say, well, how many lives have we saved this quarter? So it's a very rewarding place to be. But boy, it's hard to sell to hospitals. Like, don't do it. It's not advised.
Are you finding that the sales cycle is accelerating, though?
Oh, absolutely. Like, the beauty is once you're wired up for one application, you're wired up for all applications. And that's really actually where a lot of our growth is coming from. Basically, hospitals are like, oh, absolutely, we want to do that with you.
And what you were saying in your last slide, and I'm going to give you the mic for the next question, is so once you sense stuff, I mean, people in hospitals, then you can apply it to lots of different things, right?
Absolutely.
It could be hand washing, but it could be like whether the employee is there in the first place.
Yeah, and it's heavily identified, to Tara's point. Privacy, I think, is obviously really, really important, but these are life and death like issues inside the hospital. So we actually grappled a little bit about like, are we Big Brother and this and that? And then I realized, yeah, we're saving lives, so I'm glad that we're actually Big Brother. So it's an interesting perspective, right? I mean, as a public citizen, we definitely want to be private about, we don't want everybody to know where we're at any given time. But as a healthcare consumer, I definitely want to know if my nurse is checking up on me once an hour. So it's a completely different point of view to how data can really inform decisions. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I love the energy. Can you tell me what are some interesting patterns that you were able to find through observing the inner workings of hospitals?
Yeah, so a couple interesting data. Hospitals, over the lifespan of their mobile devices, will lose about 40% of them. So if a hospital is literally buying like $10 million worth of stuff, 4 is going to go to trash in 5 years. This is ridiculous. I mean, this is just reality of what happens in hospitals. The average hand hygiene compliance, when we start with a hospital, hovers around 35%. So it's less than half of the time that people should be washing their hands when they actually do it. There's many, many more stuff like this that's interesting and frankly a little scary, but I'll spare the rest of the audience. Go ahead.
Have you done any POCs with non-hospitals yet? Any construction sites or things like that?
Yeah, we were approached and we turned them down. I think I mentioned this earlier in my conversation. We're super aligned in terms of what we want to do in the world, and it's to fix healthcare. We want to improve outcomes. We want to obviously create profitable hospitals, but ultimately we want to save lives. So while there's many, many interesting, exciting ways in which this technology can be applied, frankly, we're not interested, and maybe one day, somehow, some way we'll get there. But when people are literally dying today, it really doesn't motivate us to come out and say, oh, let's do all these like 7 different verticals in here. Healthcare is plenty big, and the challenge is big enough for us to go after. Go ahead.
Hi, I have two technical questions.
Sure.
First one is about the beta tag. You mentioned you use BOE. I'm wondering, do you accurate tracking the location, or do you have like triangular localization algorithm to exactly pinpoint the location of the bed, or just track it if this one in the room or out of the room? That's the first question. Second question.
Before you ask the second question, let me answer the first one because I'm bad with my memory. The answer to the first question is yes, it's in-room accuracy. So we don't know where it is in the room, we just know it's in the room. And we do that with 99.5% accuracy. Turns out tracking stuff is a whole lot easier than tracking people because stuff just sit there most of the time. And people like have conversations, they walk around, they stand in a hallway, there's like cajillion edge cases that you have to worry about. And stuff is like fairly predictable inside the hospital. So now second question.
Oh, another one probably is very easy. And how you verify individual person whether they really, wash their hands, the hygiene, what that called, the second feature we have right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
We have actually sensors that we attach to the wall-mounted soap and alcohol gel dispensers. So whenever you activate a dispenser, get product in your hands, that sends a signal to the badge, whoever's the closest, and we basically attribute that hygiene event to you. And you're supposed to do it within a certain time period of you entering into the room. So if you wash your hands at some point during the day, that's not really going to matter if you're entering into a patient zone. So we're able to manage it by time and activity.
How do you know when you have saved a life?
Really great question, actually. So you take it's a longitudinal data. You take the data of the 12 months prior to your deployment, and hospitals' infection data is actually public, but obviously this is the outcome that hospitals are looking to improve. So we get this data on a monthly basis from our hospitals. And there's a national average that we just apply. Obviously, it's impossible to prove a negative. There's a mortality rate with these infections. So about 1 in 20 patients who get a hospital-acquired infection ends in mortality. So we know the infections that happen prior to SwipeSense, and we know the infections that happen after SwipeSense, and we basically apply the average. Now, I can't come to you and say, well, you were a patient in the hospital and you were alive because of us. It's obviously impossible to do. It's like saying that cheeseburger led to whatever, heart failure. It's not as straightforward. But you can basically look at the reduction in the outcomes and apply these national averages that are by the CDC, basically.
How did you improve the outcome of the hygiene, your percentages? How were you able to do
so
that?
It's, the example I shared was sort of this award ceremony. I'll give another example in here. We have hospitals, this is a hospital from Tennessee, where they have a ceremony called Pass the Pig. I'm not even kidding you, that's what they call it. The Pass the Pig is the lowest compliant unit. It literally has like a plastic pig that moves from unit to unit inside the hospital. To you, it won't mean anything. To them, it's like, we better not be the pig this month. And like the rising tide raises all boats, right? Like because everybody's thinking about the pig and they don't want to be the pig, it's something that motivates them and the average goes up. And every month this is harder, right? Because every month everyone's a little bit better than they were before. So over a long period of time, everybody improves and you basically get to this rising average effect. But it's so contextual. It's like saying, why do people go to the gym? Everybody has their own reason. We actually did. So we work with hospitals and say, like, what are ways in which that you've done this for other things in your hospital? It's a lot of what our customer success team does is things like this, is to basically work with the hospital units and their managers to figure out how they change anything in that hospital and sort of integrate hand hygiene to this. Because sort of like eating broccoli, right? I mean, it's like, you're supposed to do it, but it's like nobody wakes up in the morning saying like, I should eat broccoli today. Hand hygiene is similar. Everybody knows they're supposed to do it, but it's something very, very difficult to do. So it's highly contextualized, and boy, I wish there was a playbook for it. There isn't.
All right, so we started with a tightrope walker. We ended up with the pig. Thank you very much. This was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.